Welcome, everybody. How are you doing tonight? If you are teaching this, maybe for a couple days with lots of different fun word work activities, and you are showing it in your guided reading groups, and you are showing it in independent centers, and they are writing, and they are saying it, and they are reading it, and they keep doing this, and then you're working with a student in guided reading, and they come to this word and they say lig, and you look at them and you wonder, what happened to all that teaching? Why didn't that stick? Has it happened to you guys? Let me hear you in an emoji. How you feel about that when your students have been taught something over and over again, but when they come across it in real reading, it doesn't stick. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about it specifically in terms of the texts that we use. All right, I am Marnie Ginsberg of Reading Simplified, and it's our mission here at Reading Simplified to help classroom teachers or anyone teaching reading to streamline their instruction and also accelerate their students' reading achievement. So one of the biggest ways in which you can do that is by choosing texts that make phonics stick. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Michelle has that question marks like, why does this happen, right? Let me hear from you guys. You're teaching something, you've done it in every way you can think, and it doesn't transfer. So last week we talked about how some of the word work activities that we do or don't do may make a difference. And tonight we're going to kind of reference back to that, but mainly talk about texts that will make a difference and why they make a difference to get the phonics to stick. So I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. Welcome, Michelle. Oh, we've got two Michelles. And so let me switch over, not to that, sorry, to something I want to ask you guys about. So in preparation for thinking about this question of why don't they stick, I'm going to ask you something, okay? So let's see if I can bring up the right file. Get my technology in order. Okay. Now you don't see me? Sorry about that. Maybe we should try something different. So we will get this to work, ladies and gentlemen. Just have a question based on a picture that I created. So I'm going to try it this way. Not working. Okay, I know what to do. Give me just one more second. Got fancy with my technology. Too fancy for my own abilities, evidently. Maybe if I drag this over here. There we go. Can you guys see that now? Okay. You can see that. Nope. Yep, you can see that, but you can't see me. Let's see. So we're going to be referring to this picture right here, okay? I've got two images. Let's see if I can combine the two of us. Wow. The image that I'm bringing up here on the screen, let me just show it real fast because I'm not juggling back and forth very well. Let me try one more thing. Sorry, you guys. You're very patient. I'm really a reading expert, not a technology expert. So give me a second. Show overlay windows. Okay, so you can see that now, just you can't see me. All right, we'll just move on with that. So pretend that you are trying to learn this image, and this image, say it means life, okay? And that's the image on the left. And then you're also trying to learn this image over here, and this is a representation of the word death. So on the left, you have the word that would represent life, and on the right you would have the word that represent death. Okay, have you memorized it? Have you gotten it? Now let me ask you a question. If you were trying to memorize what it looked like, and you saw the representation of the word life in text, and you saw it maybe 5 times in a text, and you read it over and over again on Monday. And then what if you were to read a different passage on, say, Wednesday, and you didn't see life again, but you saw the image for death over and over again, and maybe 4 times in a different passage? Would that be the best way to learn these representations? Would that stick in your memory? Why or why not? So if you are just looking at this one image on the left for one day, and you never have to contrast it with this image on the right at the same time, at least initially, is that the best way to learn a new image or a new idea or a new word? Well, I don't believe that it is, but a lot of our phonics programs do that for our kids, or they do that to our kids. They give kids say a spelling like this one, and they show it to them for one day, and then they see it in a text over and over again, but they don't see anything else quite like it, and they don't contrast it with anything quite like it. And then on another day, they would see a different spelling for I. And then only after maybe a week or 2 or 3 do they put the 2 spellings for the one sound in the student's text at the same time. And so it's very hard with that kind of presentation for phonics to stick for kids. But what if instead you were to go to this screen and read a passage with this image on the left for life, and then you had to read the passage with the same image on the right for death, alternating back and forth? What happens when you are challenged to continually confront a new symbol that you're not sure about? Is it more challenging? Does your brain stay more alert, attuned, awake? Well, what can happen if you have to contrast 2 things, or 3 or 4, over and over again, is that you're more likely to have your brain stay awake. You're more likely to get your brain to make connections. In contrast, if you just see, let's see here if I can show you what I mean. If you just see this image 5 times, by the time you're looking at it the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th time, you just kind of tune out. But if you see both of them over and over again, you're more likely to have to be alert. Wait, what's the difference between this and this? What's the difference? What's the difference? Every time you're asking, your brain's asking, what's the difference? You are going to be more likely to get something to stick. Okay? So that is one thing to keep in mind when you are picking texts. Many of our texts today will present something like EE says E, and then you read a passage and it's only EE as E, and the student's brain can kind of turn off. They don't need to think, is this E or is this E? Or is this A or is this I? They can just get in a lull and their brain can tune out. But when they see many things at once, it's not so easy. So let me show you an example of what I'm talking about when they see many things at once. If you've been watching us before, and particularly last week, we talked about sorted. And this is an example of sorted. So it's presenting all of the sounds of E at the same time, and then the student has to really pay attention to the different spellings. So this is a great word work activity to help the phonics stick, so that they're not just seeing one sound, one spelling at once, and their brain can tune out, because they are being challenged to go back and forth. And in this challenge of going back and forth, the brain gets stuff to stick. So we talked about that being an important word work activity. But then what about what to read? So that's what I really want to talk about tonight. So let me present to you a few tips about picking good texts, and then I'll show you what some examples of text that I like to refer to and use with my students and recommend in our Reading Simplified Academy. And then finally, I will offer you a freebie so that you can have some of these titles and places to go find books that will make this phonics stick. Some of them are free, and many of them, all of them, are low cost if they're not free. Okay, so let's move on to talk about some of the key principles that help make phonics stick. Okay, so the first one is provide sufficient practice or repetition of the target sound. So back to our example before, if you saw that funny little squiggle maybe twice in a text of 50 words or 150 words, would it stick? But what if you saw that funny squiggle that represented life? What if you saw it 5 times or 15 times? Would you be more likely to have it stick? So that's one thing to consider when you're picking your phonics text. Pick a text that has lots of representations of the thing that you're working on in guided reading. So if you're doing word work and you're trying to get students to remember all the spellings for the I sound, make sure you give them a passage to read during guide reading and then to read on their own that has all that repetition. Not just one spelling and not just every now and then, but kind of concentrated. And it's the texts that are concentrated on that target sound that will enable the student to get this phonics information to stick. Let's think about it this way. If you are teaching math and you are working on the threes, adding or subtracting the threes, you do some activities, maybe some games where they do 3 plus 3, 3 plus 5, 3 plus 2, lots of 3 activities. And then you give them a homework sheet. And what if that homework sheet just had 2 problems with 3s and everything else was like 4 plus 9, 1 plus 7, etc.? Would that be good homework practice? What do you think? You give me a sign on that. Good homework practice? Not so good homework practice? Maybe you give me emoji. Is that good math practice? Well, of course not. In math, we wouldn't do that. If we're focusing on a particular thing, then we give them practice that has a lot of that repetition. So that's back to that point number 1, sufficient practice, sufficient repetition of the target sound. But in reading, our texts often don't do that. Let me show you what I mean. Maybe you're teaching the short I, and then you have your students read this passage. Is this a good passage for practicing the short I, the short I? The bear reads on the computer. The bear talks with a mic. Well, how many short I opportunities are there? There are 2, and that might be okay, but if the pattern keeps going of the bear does this, the bear and the bear talks, or the bear does, and there's very few short I opportunities, then that's not a really good match. You're not getting sufficient practice of the thing that you've been working on in word work, right? So is it going to transfer? Very unlikely that it will transfer that way, right? So instead of selecting a text that doesn't really zero in a lot on the target sound that you're working on with guided reading, pick a text that really does emphasize the target sound. So let me show you an example of that. I bet many of you are familiar with Starfall. Okay, so this would just be an obvious one. If you were to teach the short U, this would be a really good text, wouldn't it? Look how many short U's are just on this first page, even though there's very few words. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 short U's, and every page has a short U, if not several. So is this following the principle that I recommended, number 1, that let's get up to that principle, that sufficient practice or repetition of the target sound is happening? Yes, and I find that teachers are more likely to do this, or I shouldn't say teachers, techs are more likely to do this during, oh, cool, Krista, that's funny. She said to use this story today. curriculum is more likely to do this with short vowels, but with long vowels, we kind of take a different approach. And so that's why I think we can really save a lot of time and make, help kids learn a lot faster if we target texts that have advanced phonics, like the long O's, the long vowels, and they have multiple spellings. Let me give you an example. So similarly, in Starfall, you've got Pete's sheep. Okay, so if you're focusing on the E sound for word work, and then you go and have them read an E sound text that has multiple spellings of the E sound, they're going to be more, and enough of them, then they'll be more likely to get it to learn, to memorize. So you've got the E in Pete that's separated, the E in sleep that is together, and there's an E in at least every page. And then, so we've got 2 different E spellings. I even prefer passages where there's 3 or 4. So I'm going to show you some examples of that tonight. So let me get on to my third point about what can make text work well for you. So kind of what I've alluded to, number 2, is incorporate multiple spellings of the same sound. So that with the example of Pete's sheep, we have the E in Pete, the E in sheep. It would be even better if there was the E in eat or each. And that is something that's pretty tricky to find. So in the list that I'm going to give to you tonight, I'm directing you to lots of passages that have more than one spelling. That kind of gets back to that original idea. If you're trying to learn that funky figure earlier with the one was life and one was death, if you just see life only and then one day and then you just see death only the other day, then by the time you get to put them together, you've kind of wasted those first few days. So if you put them both together at the same time from the beginning, then the brain has to really be alert. What are the funny differences? One's hooked this way, one's hooked that way. All those kinds of nuances about those tricky letter sounds like OA, OW, O silent E, O by itself. All those small nuances that beginners don't know, they have to confront when they see a passage that has multiple spellings of the same sound. And then to my last point, don't be afraid of text that includes some untaught spelling words. And what do I mean by that? Say you've gone through a decoding sequence and you've done all short vowels, you've done short O, you've done short E, and you have a text that looks pretty good, but it has a couple A sounds in it, or maybe some irregular sight words that you haven't covered yet. That's actually good. As long as it's not too much of the text that they haven't had any experience with, having some exposure to some things that they haven't learned yet is a great opportunity in the context of guided reading where you're there to give support, because you can coach them to develop the flex-it strategy. All right. And that is just one of the key decoding strategies that we need to develop in our readers so that they try one sound, and if it doesn't work, then they try another. So if they come across the word phone and they say phony, and you're like, well, and you kind of tap the O and the E. What else could it be? And you're asking their brain to flex it, and they say, oh, phone. They drop the ah, and they add the O. And so that kind of experience is huge, because that's what even adult readers do today. We try one sound, we flex the sounds, and if it doesn't make sense, we try another one. So a lot of phonics programs will control the vocabulary so that the students never see something that they haven't been taught before. And I don't think that's necessary. And I think it inhibits that flex-it strategy, which is really a primary decoding strategy we want all our kids to have, right? Flexibility. We want them to attack a word, give it a try. If it doesn't make sense, try something else. And so an occasional exposure to something that they haven't been taught yet explicitly is good. So Sarah is asking text about, do you have examples of text with multiple spellings of consonant sounds or short vowels? Yes. Let's pull some of those up. But going back to the summing of all these 3 points before I get into some example texts, just remember these are some things to keep in mind about text that will help kids get the phonics to stick more quickly. Okay, so I am looking for some materials. Let me see if I've got one here, and then we will, okay. I thought I brought one up. I'm going to bring one up, you guys, and if there's any other questions while I'm trying to bring that up, please let me know, okay? That'll be super helpful. I'm going to bring up some texts that come from the Reading Simplified Academy. That's where we provide lots of resources for teachers, and they map onto these principles. But you can also find them in other places, which I'll show you on the book list. But I just don't have handy samples that are easy to see. Let's see. Let's see if I can bring in any other questions, you guys, while I'm bringing that up. So it's ideal if you're teaching, say, the O sound, if it has at least 3 sounds for the target spelling. It's hard to squeeze them all in because they're, you know, writing a good decoding text is pretty tricky. That's why people oftentimes don't like to use them that much, but they have a lot going with for them. So I'm getting to a passage that will be an example. Right? Might just need to do it the old-fashioned. Oh, here we go. Okay. So this is a snow day with Mom. I will get rid of this one and show you snow day. Well, we'll just leave that there. Okay. So a snow day with Mom. Mom shows me the snow. And so there's show and snow with one spelling. And then notice there's the O in go and the O in coat. I have my thick coat. And then there's the O in cold, but I still get cold. And then I go home. There's the O silent E. And then another one, cocoa, is a bonus word, right? You got 2 O spellings in there. So a student could read that and then go and sort those words into a sorted page like this. Obviously, this is the E sound, but they could do it for the O sound. So that's one example from the Reading Simplified Academy. Norah Gaydos is one of my favorite authors for kids who are just beginning. This is actually, I'm sorry, I should have brought out one for the for the long vowels, but this is one of her short vowel collections. What she has is you can find these for about $15, 10 different texts that focus on either all the short vowels or all the long vowels. How many of you have used Norah Gaydos and like her stuff? Why it's so good is that first of all, they're funny illustrations. A lot of them are animals. They are easy to get kids to do something that they might not otherwise be able to do, pretty challenging. Maybe they're really young and they barely can read words yet. Well, it kind of gently gets them into it, right? The crab, the bad crab. And the bad crab grabs. The bad crab grabs ham. So it's repetition, not too many words on a page, focus on the target sound. She has the same thing in level 2 sets. This is level 1. Level 2 sets will have like the O sound. She has like 2 books for each O sound and 2 books for each E sound and 2 books for each A sound. And they kind of focus on 2 spellings each. So if I was to use one book on Monday and the other book on Tuesday, and then some of the resources from the Reading Simplified Academy or some of the other places that I'm going to recommend to you, then you would get a nice balanced diet, so to speak, across the course of the week. Okay, so that was a great question, Sarah. I hope that addresses that, is at least somewhat of a sample. Yeah, Starfall has, again, that set that you're probably familiar with. If you're not, go straight there. These you can read them online for free, and these books are only about $1.99 to give every kid in your class 15 different books that they can take home, including 5 short vowels and 5 long vowels. So let me just show you if I've got the, yeah. So Jake's Tale, it really focuses a lot on the A silent E, but it also has the A in play and the A in they, which is a very low frequency one, but it's still one to know. Okay, so let me show you the word, the list that I'm going to recommend to you guys, so you can start finding some of these texts if you don't already have them. First of all, the first place to look are old reading series or basal series in your school if you are a school teacher. There are probably a lot of mostly decodable things that target one sound and may even have multiple spellings. So that is a great thing to consider if you have that. Just dig around for them. It's worth the digging. And then let me pull up the right file. Here we go. And then let me show you this other word list, book list. Here we go. Okay. So this is the freebie. If you go to the link that's in this comment, in the comment of this post, you'll get this list, Texts That Make Phonics Stick. So I don't think that, I don't expect you to get all of them, but these are just some resources for you to pull from. Like I said, many of them are free. So first we have the basic code, and by basic I mean short vowels, consonant, and consonant digraphs. These are a little easier. So one of my favorite sets that I've recently found is called the You Can Do It. The I Like to Read series. And let's see if I have a picture. I don't have a picture of that one, but it is one that I highly recommend because it is super funny. There aren't many words on the page, and there's some repetition. They do the thing that I recommended earlier. They're going to have a lot of decodable words, easy CVC decodable words, but they're going to throw in some things that you haven't been taught before, so the student gets to flex it. So how many of you have seen the I Like to Read series? Oh, and Diane's got a good suggestion. Abe Lincoln's Hat for the ah sound. Yeah, and or owl at home for is that for ow, like in cow, I guess. And the Great Snake Escape for the E sound. Okay. Yep, Sarah, I think I'm following with you. So Molly Cox is a good one for mixed short vowels. She's just an author that has a couple different trade backs type books. They're probably at your local library, and if you want to get them on Amazon, you can probably get them for like $1.99. They are funny and really good. I wanted to show you these books called the Real Kids Readers. Let me show you an example. So these are a set of readers called Real Kids Readers, and they really do have real kids in them. They are diverse kids, and they are really vibrant pictures, and they have only a few words on a page, and they are mostly short vowels. So these are really good introductory texts for those kinds, that little kiddo. I have a tent, I have my lamp, I have my bag. So CVC, CVCC. I'm set to camp, so it's got another CVC and a CVCC word, and the pictures are just really vibrant, and they have lots of books in this series with kids, boys, girls, camping, mixed boys and girls. I just can't say enough about them. Those are by Marcia Leonard, and so My Camp Out is one example of that. And I got a couple other here that are free, like Fun Phonics and Free Phonetic Readers. Those aren't like my top favorites, but they're free. And so if you don't have much to pull from, go for that. And Primary Phonics is another oldie, but it can be helpful if you are needing this type of text. Okay, it's obviously very simple black and white drawings. And there's actually kind of a lot of text if you're a beginner, but they're really fairly controlled. And you're going to see the mixed short vowels as they move further on. So for instance, this is the 5th one, short E, so all the ones before are being included, which is good. That fits the Reading Simplified approach. There probably won't be as many words that they haven't encountered yet, so that flex-it ability isn't necessarily as amped up here, but this can be a good thing. Primary Phonics. Set 1 is one that I have used occasionally. And then this core knowledge curriculum, that will be a hyperlink to some free resources, which are really rather incredible. Let me show you that. So this is just one reader. They have an entire curriculum, like a whole basal that you can get for free and print out. So you're gonna have to save up your pennies for printing, but they have a lot of great features. They are more diverse characters than some of the traditional literature that we've had access to. They have really nice, vibrant pictures, which I will show you an example of. And they don't have too much text on the page. That's not daunting, is it? And look how they've bolded the TH, because that's the target for this. So if you wanted to particularly teach, you know, some of the consonant digraphs, you would go to this unit. Let me show you some other pages. This one, of course, has a lot more text. It's further into the book. But all of this is freely available. So check out that hyperlink in the PDF to get this. Let me show you some of the more of the images. They put a lot of money into these images, so that's almost as good as another reading series if you don't have your own that's mostly decodable. So this is kindergarten. If you look in the 1st grade, you'll see more of the advanced phonics, like the long vowels. Okay, let's go back to the list. Miss Rhonda's readers, I have an example here of Pink Pig. Those are so cute. They have mixed short vowels, and again, she'll throw in some words that are a little harder, but you still get that flex-it opportunity. And then I highly recommend my Reading Simplified Academy. That's a membership where I teach a core set of strategies like Sort It, which we began with, and also provide lots of resources like this one here. So this one that I'm about to show you is acted out. That's just a passage that a student, it's not really a passage, you could just cut it up and play a game like charades, but this is targeting the short vowels and the earlier vowel things like the AR before we get into the advanced phonics. So that's a little glimpse at basic code. That's a lot of different resources that you could go get either for free or put some money towards. Now let me show you the advanced code. This is long vowels and other digraphs, vowel digraphs and diphthongs and so on and so forth. So again, I'm going to recommend Norah Gaydos, as I did before. She's got a couple different sets. And Miss Rhonda's Readers has another one that's more challenging, and she does a great job, Miss Rhonda's Readers, of showing multiple spellings for one sound. I really like that book. It's one book, like $20, but it's got like 7 or 8 stories. And then Progressive Phonics is fun. I happen to have with me the short vowel, but they have long vowels and other advanced phonics as well. These are good because it's great to buddy read with these. You just ask the student to read the words in red. So this might be a really beginning kind of kid. The teacher reads look, the student reads at. Teacher reads my, Student reads cat. So look at my cat. His name is Hello Yellow. And look at him eat a bowl of yellow jello. So these are funny and ridiculous. Look at his hat. His hat is very yellow. Did my cat make his hat from a bowl of yellow jello? So they're all kind of like that. Silly. They make the kids laugh, and they get in the repetition of the target sound. So they have at and add patterns in a different passage, and an and app. So I don't teach those as units very often, but if this is a great free resource, and occasionally giving kids that exposure, it won't make them stuck with at. That's the reason I don't want to always give them just at and an, but mix it up. But so those don't mix it up directly initially, but it's still because it's so much fun, and because you can give kind of a balanced diet across the day, across the week, then those seem to work for students. So here are just a couple others. There's another I Like to Read book, Pete Won't Eat. And then in the Reading Simplified Academy, we use a lot of nursery rhymes. So you can analyze the nursery rhymes that you know, and see how many of them have a particular target sound over and over again. Like Betty Botter has a lot of ER. And we use that a lot. Like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is good to teach the R sound. It's also good to teach the I sound because it's I, light, night, bright, that kind of thing. So that's another free place to go. Again, the core knowledge, I can't recommend that enough. And Fun Phonics has a few short passages that work for advanced phonics. And then definitely the Reading Simplified Academy. And there, again, is Miss Rhonda's Readers. That's her third book. So that is the list. If you haven't seen the link in the comment, you can get that list for free. And I'm going to answer any questions if you have any more questions or comments or suggestions. I'd love to hear it. I would love to know what you guys share. But just to kind of sum up, let's see, we'll get the right. If you can pick, here's an example. To sum up, if you can get your students to read text with multiple spellings of the same sound, their brain will not turn off. They will learn these more quickly. And then these can turn around and be a word work activity because they can go circle the spellings of the target sound, like the O in show and the O in coat and the O in go and the O in coat, the O's in cocoa, and then they can put them on a sorted page like this one. So they have to really analyze the inside parts of words. Of course, this is the E sound, so it's not a perfect lineup, but I'm sure you get my drift. So if you want kids to memorize some tricky things, which to them is almost as bizarre as these little squiggles, remember some of these tips that we talked about today. Give them enough repetition of the target sound. Don't give them a text that's kind of random and doesn't really zero in on the O if you're studying O. And then if insofar as it's possible, give them multiple spellings of the same sound. And don't be afraid to let them see some spellings or some words they haven't been explicitly taught, because they can still use that Flexit strategy, a prime decoding strategy. I see we have one more comment. Diane is suggesting primary phonics set 1 for short vowels and set 2 for long. Okay, great. So this one I was showing was the short, the set 1, and set 2 will be good for long vowels. I agree. Oh, so Krista, you have some weak grade 1s this term. You started using Bob books. Is that okay? I was also going to use nursery rhymes. Absolutely. Bob books are great if your kids are happy with them, especially. Let's pull up the list again and just talk about what would be a nice diet, a balanced diet to go with that, okay? To mix it up. Let's see here. So we're back in the book list that you guys can get for free. Okay. So my other favorite would really be that Norah Gaydos collection. Let's see, where is it? Down here, set 1. There you go. So I'll show you. So I showed you, I think, an A earlier. This is wet legs. Okay. A hen, a pet hen. A red pet hen gets wet. So this is not doing one of the things that I recommend. If anybody is up for it, tell me what it's not doing that I recommend. A red pet hen begs and begs. A red pet hen begs to get in bed. But there's tons of short E repetition. We certainly are getting the short E repetition, but we're not doing one thing I do like. But just because it's so hard to find the perfect text, again, some balanced diet with this type of thing will be fine. A red pet hen steps in bed. That one's a little harder because it's got the VC word in it. No red pet hen in bed. A red pet hen is in the bed. Paul is pointing out there's no flexit going on. Very good. That's right, because almost everything in here is a CVC word. It's short E, and there's very few unusual words that they probably haven't already been taught before, or spellings that they haven't been taught before. So the brain doesn't have to go, wait, is this he or is this heen or hen? They don't have to flex the sounds. And so it's not going to be as challenging. So it may be a better introductory text on day one when you really want to douse them with the short E, but maybe the next day you give them a passage that's got short E and some of the spellings that they've learned before. In the Reading Simplified Academy, we teach, and in Reading Simplified in general, we teach a progression of phonics so that after the week 1 they've learned A and I, and then week 2 they've learned O and E. So week 2 or the second step, they would be seeing text with all those spellings, A, I, O, and E, and then they'd wait till they get the U, at least in a high dosage, but they would maybe see a U here and there if you want to stick the word run in. Here's another. Oh, great. That's right. Meadow Center. Are you talking about in Texas? Yes. I haven't seen that look lately. I'll have to check that out. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, the Meadow Center at Texas has tons of good resources. So if they've got some more decodables that are free, even better. Great. So you guys have really helped expand this list, and we've got some here already for you. So I hope this is useful, and we'll be back here in Reading Simplified on the following Tuesday. We're here at most Tuesdays at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, giving suggestions for optimizing your reading instruction so you can save time, so you can stress less, and also so your students can accelerate in their reading achievement. So thanks for being here. Don't forget to get the freebie. It's in the comments. You can go to the website Reading Simplified to snag that freebie and see if some of these books, suggestions, and series, really it's the series that I'm in general trying to recommend, could be of service to you. And also, if you want to share this with a friend, they might want to get some free books or to get some good ideas, please do that. So thanks for being here, you guys. Good night.